My husband told me his company was transferring him to Denver for 6 months. He packed his bags, kissed me goodbye, and promised a video call every night. I believed him. I supported him. I even helped him pack. 3 weeks later, I sold our house for $850,000 cash while he was gone. When he showed up at the door with his mistress, suitcases in hand, ready to move into his house, I handed him the eviction notice and smiled. The look on his face when he realized he was homeless was worth every penny. Let me tell you how I got here. My name is Catherine, and for 15 years I thought I had the perfect marriage. Daniel and I met in college, married young, and built what I believed was a solid life together. He worked in pharmaceutical sales, climbing the corporate ladder with impressive determination. I worked as a freelance graphic designer from home, which gave me flexibility, but also meant I'd sacrifice climbing my own career ladder to support his. Our house was a beautiful 3-bedroom Craftsman in Portland, Oregon. We bought it 10 years ago for $380,000, and with the market boom, it was now worth over $850,000. The mortgage was almost paid off, just $120,000 remaining. Everything was in both our names, 50-50 ownership. It was our dream home, the place where we'd planned to grow old together. Daniel had always been attentive, or so I thought. He brought me coffee in bed on Sundays, remembered anniversaries, and told me I was beautiful even when I was wearing stained pajamas and hadn't washed my hair in 3 days. He was my best friend, my partner, my everything. Looking back now, I realize I've been willfully blind to the signs. The late-night texts he dismissed as work emergencies. The new cologne that smelled expensive and musky, nothing like the fresh citrus scent he'd worn for years. The way he'd started going to the gym at 5 a.m., coming home with wet hair and a glow that I stupidly attributed to endorphins. The biggest red flag was Melissa, his work colleague. He'd mentioned her casually about 8 months ago. We hired a new regional manager, Melissa. Sharp woman, really knows her stuff. Then Melissa started appearing in more stories. Melissa suggested this restaurant for the client dinner. Melissa thinks I should apply for the VP position. Melissa and I are working on the new territory expansion. I met her once at his company holiday party last December. She was 32, 8 years younger than me, with sleek blonde hair styled in a professional bob, wearing a red dress that hugged every curve. She had that polished, corporate ambition radiating from her like heat. When Daniel introduced us, she looked me up and down with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So you're Catherine," she'd said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Daniel talks about you all the time. It must be so nice to work from home. So much more relaxed than the corporate grind." The way she emphasized relaxed made it sound like lazy. I'd smiled tightly and excused myself to get another drink. Daniel hadn't noticed the slight. He'd been too busy laughing at something Melissa said, his hand resting on her elbow in a way that made my stomach clench. But I pushed it down. I was being paranoid, jealous, insecure, all the things I'd promised myself I'd never be. Then came March 15th, a Thursday I'll never forget. Daniel came home from work looking serious, sat me down at the kitchen table, and took my hands in his. "Cat," he said, using his nickname for me, "I have some news. The company is restructuring the Western Territories, and they want me to head up the Denver expansion. It's a huge opportunity, a promotion, basically a guaranteed VP track." My heart sank. "Denver? But that's—" I know, he interrupted, squeezing my hands. "It's far, but it's only for 6 months, maybe less. They want me to establish the new office, train the team, set up the infrastructure. Once it's running smoothly, I can come back and manage it remotely. This is the break we've been waiting for. The salary bump alone is $45,000. 6 months. I tried to process it. "Can I come with you?" He shook his head. "The company is putting me up in temporary corporate housing, basically a glorified hotel room. It wouldn't be comfortable for both of us, and besides, someone needs to stay here and take care of the house. Plus, you have your clients here. It doesn't make sense to uproot your whole business." Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Everything he said made logical sense. I hated it, but I understood. This was his career, his dream. I'd always supported him. How could I stand in his way now? Okay, I said, my voice small. When do you leave? Monday. For days. 4 days to prepare for 6 months apart. I spent that weekend helping him pack, washing and folding his clothes, making sure he had everything he needed. He was nervous, excited, kissing my forehead and promising he'd call every night, that he'd fly home once a month, that this was for us, for our future. Sunday night, I made his favorite dinner, lasagna with garlic bread. We ate by candlelight, and afterward, we made love with a desperate intensity that I told myself was about missing each other, not about goodbye. Monday morning, I woke up early and made him breakfast. He loaded his suitcases into his Audi, the same car I'd helped him pick out 2 years ago. Standing in the driveway, he pulled me into a long hug. I love you, Kat. This is going to fly by, I promise. I love you too, I whispered against his chest. And then he was gone. The first week was hard. The house felt too big, too empty. But Daniel kept his promise. He called every night around 8 p.m. Denver time, 7 p.m. my time. He'd tell me about his day, the challenges of setting up the new office, the team he was building. He'd ask about my work, my clients, whether I'd remembered to eat lunch. Everything seemed normal. Until it wasn't. The cracks started small. One night, he called at 9:30 instead of 8 o'clock. Sorry, babe, client dinner ran late. Another night, I heard a woman's laugh in the background. Oh, that's just Kelly, one of the new sales reps. We're all working late tonight. Then came the night he forgot to call entirely. I stayed up until midnight, staring at my phone, my stomach churning with anxiety. At 12:47 a.m., my phone finally rang. Kat, I'm so sorry. I completely lost track of time. We had this emergency meeting, and then I just crashed. His voice sounded strange, slightly slurred, like he'd been drinking. And in the background, very faintly I heard it. A woman's voice, muffled but unmistakable. Daniel, come back to bed. My blood ran cold. Who was that? What? Oh, that's just the TV. I fell asleep with it on. I'm barely coherent right now, babe. Can we talk tomorrow? He hung up before I could respond. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. It was the TV. It had to be. But something in my gut told me I was lying to myself. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I opened our cell phone account online and checked the detailed call logs. Daniel's number appeared on the screen, and I scrolled through his recent activity. My hand started shaking. Multiple calls to the same unknown number. Daily. Sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. Calls lasting 20 minutes, 40 minutes, over an hour. Text messages, dozens of them, all to the same number. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. It rang twice. Then a woman's voice, bright and cheerful. Hey you. Miss me already? I couldn't speak. The voice was vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. Daniel? Hello. The voice changed, became more cautious. Who is this? I hung up. My hands were trembling, so badly I dropped the phone. It took me 3 hours to work up the courage to call back. This time, I blocked my number first. She answered on the first ring. Daniel! And suddenly I knew. The voice. The cadence. It was Melissa. I hung up again and ran to the bathroom, where I threw up everything in my stomach. My husband wasn't in Denver setting up an office. He was in Denver living with his mistress. The rage came slowly, building like a storm on the horizon. For 3 days, I moved through the house like a ghost, my mind working furiously. I pulled up the company directory online and found Melissa's employee profile. Location, Denver, Colorado. Started date, 3 months ago. 3 months ago. Right around the time Daniel had started mentioning the Denver expansion. I logged into our joint bank account. There it was, plain as day. His direct deposits were still coming from the Portland office. There had been no salary increase, no promotion, no restructuring. I checked his credit card statements. Charges from restaurants in Denver. Yes, but not business dinners. Romantic restaurants. Wine bars. A jewelry store where he'd spent $2,800 on something he'd certainly never given to me. A lingerie boutique. A high-end furniture store. He wasn't living in corporate housing. He was furnishing Melissa's apartment. Every lie, every deception, every moment I'd spent missing him while he was playing house with another woman crashed over me like a tidal wave. I screamed into a pillow until my throat was raw. I cried until there were no tears left. I punched the wall and bruised my knuckles. And then, slowly, coldly, I began to plan. Daniel thought I was stupid. He thought I was naive, that I'd sit here like a good little wife, keeping the home fires burning while he built a new life with his younger, shinier toy. He'd underestimated me spectacularly. I called my old college roommate, Priya, who happened to be a divorce attorney now. Priya, I need help. And I need you to keep this completely confidential. I told her everything. The fake transfer, the phone records, the credit card statements. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was silent for a long moment. Catherine, this is going to sound cold, but right now you need to think strategically. Don't confront him yet. Don't let him know you know. We need to protect your assets first. What do you mean? Your house is your biggest asset. In Oregon, it's community property, so normally it would be split 50-50 in a divorce. But if he's abandoned the marital home and is cohabitating with another woman, we might be able to argue for a more favorable settlement. However, there's something else we can do. What? Sell the house. Right now. Before he knows what's happening. Put the money in an account in your name only. Once we file for divorce, we'll argue that you needed to liquidate the asset for financial security after he abandoned you. The court will likely order you to split the proceeds, but at least you'll have control of the cash instead of being tied to a house you can't afford alone. My heart was racing. Is that legal? You're on the deed. You have every right to sell your own home. And technically, you're not hiding assets, you're liquidating them. It's aggressive, but it's not illegal. The question is, can you do it fast enough? How fast do we need to be? How often does Daniel check the property records or joint accounts? I thought about it. He never does. I handle all the household finances. Then we have a window. But Catherine, once you do this, there's no going back. This is a declaration of war. I looked around the house that I'd poured my heart into decorating, the home I thought we'd grow old in together. Every corner held a memory that now tasted like ash. Good, I said. Let's burn it all down. The next morning, I called the most aggressive real estate agent in Portland, a woman named Veronica, who was known for closing deals at lightning speed. I'd heard about her from my neighbor who'd sold their house in 8 days. Veronica arrived at my house within 2 hours, her stiletto heels clicking on my hardwood floors as she walked through each room with a critical eye. Gorgeous home, she said, taking photos with her phone. Excellent bones, great neighborhood, recent upgrades. In this market, we can move this fast. What's your timeline? As fast as humanly possible. I need it sold and closed within 30 days. She raised an eyebrow. That's aggressive. May I ask why the rush? My husband and I are divorcing. He doesn't know yet. I need this done before he finds out. Veronica's eyes gleamed. I got the sense she loved a dramatic challenge. I can work with that. If we price it right, we can have offers by the weekend. Are you willing to go slightly under market value for a quick cash sale? How much under? List at $825,000. You'll probably get offers between $800,000 and $850,000. A cash buyer will close fast, no financing contingencies. We could have this wrapped up in 3 weeks. It was $25,000 less than top market value, but the speed was worth it. Do it. Veronica had the listing up by that afternoon. Professional photos, virtual tour, the works. She'd even staged a few rooms with her own furniture to make it look perfect. By Friday, we had 12 offers. 3 were all cash. I accepted an offer of $847,000 from a tech executive relocating from San Francisco. He wanted to close in 18 days. 17 days before Daniel was scheduled to fly home for his monthly visit. During those 18 days, I moved like a woman possessed. I hired movers to put everything I wanted to keep into a storage unit across town. I donated furniture to charity, held a garage sale for the smaller items. I took down family photos and packed them away. I hired a lawyer to draft a post-nuptial agreement that Daniel would never see. Every night at 7 p.m., Daniel called. Every night, I answered, my voice sweet and loving, asking about his day while I packed boxes in the background. What's that noise? he asked once. "Oh, I'm just reorganizing the garage. Spring cleaning. Keeping busy while you're gone." He believed every word. Priya had drawn up divorce papers, but we agreed not to file them until after the house sale closed. The less official documentation floating around, the better. On day 15, I opened a new bank account at a different bank, one Daniel had no access to. On day 18, I sat in a title company office and signed closing papers. The $847,000, minus the $120,000 remaining mortgage, closing costs, and commissions, left me with $687,000 in cash. $687,000 that Daniel knew nothing about. I transferred it immediately to my new account, then moved it into a high-yield savings account where it would earn interest while I figured out my next move. The house officially closed on a Tuesday. Wednesday, I signed a 6-month lease on a gorgeous 2-bedroom loft downtown, overlooking the Willamette River. It was modern, sleek mine. Thursday, I changed the locks on the old house, even though technically the new owners wouldn't take possession for another week. I wanted to be there when Daniel came home. I wanted to see his face. Friday morning, I got a call from Veronica. "Catherine, I have some strange news. A man just called my office asking about your house listing. Said he was the co-owner and wanted to know why we'd sold without his permission." My blood went cold. "What did you tell him?" "That I represented the homeowner who was on the deed and had full legal right to sell. He's threatening legal action, but honestly, he doesn't have a leg to stand on. You were legally entitled to sell. I just thought you should know he knows." "Thank you, Veronica." I hung up and checked my phone. 14 missed calls from Daniel. 8 voicemails. 23 text messages, each one more frantic than the last. The first, "Cat, why is there a sold sign in front of our house? Call me." The last, "What the fuck did you do?" I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called Priya. "He knows about the house. File the divorce papers. Today. Are you sure? Once we file theirs." "I'm sure. Do it." 2 hours later, Daniel's phone rang one more time. This time, it was a process server informing him he was being served with divorce papers and a restraining order preventing him from coming within 500 feet of me. My phone exploded. Calls, texts, voicemails, all of Daniel screaming, pleading, threatening. I blocked his number. Then I poured myself a very large glass of wine and waited. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. I knew Daniel would come back to Portland. I knew he'd show up at the house. What I didn't expect was that he'd bring Melissa with him. It was a Wednesday afternoon, 3 days after the divorce papers were served, when I got a call from my lawyer. "Catherine, your ex-husband filed an emergency motion to freeze all marital assets, including the proceeds from the house sale. We have a hearing tomorrow morning." "Can he do that?" "He can try. But given that you sold a marital asset without his consent, the judge is going to want to hear both sides. This is going to get ugly. Are you prepared for that?" "More than prepared." That night, I barely slept. I kept rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd present the evidence I'd gathered. The phone records, the credit card statements, the proof that he'd abandoned our home to live with his mistress while lying to me about a work transfer. The next morning, I dressed in a navy blue suit, my hair pulled back in a professional bun. I looked like I meant business. Because I did. At the courthouse, I saw Daniel for the first time in 6 weeks. He looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair uncombed, his suit wrinkled. Standing next to him was Melissa, looking decidedly less polished than at the Christmas party. Her roots were showing, her makeup was cakey, and she wore a cheap black dress that did nothing for her figure. When Daniel saw me, his face contorted with rage. He started toward me, but his lawyer grabbed his arm. "Mr. Morrison, control yourself," the lawyer hissed. We filed into the courtroom. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, reviewed both motions with a frown. "Mr. Morrison, you're alleging that your wife sold your marital home without your knowledge or consent. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Daniel's lawyer said. "My client was away on a work assignment when Mrs. Morrison unilaterally decided to sell their home of 10 years for $847,000. He had no idea this was happening until after the fact. Mrs. Morrison, is this accurate? Priya stood. Your Honor, it is accurate that my client sold the marital home. However, there are significant extenuating circumstances that we believe justify her actions. I'm listening. Priya pulled out a folder. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Morrison was not, in fact, away on a work assignment. He lied to my client about being transferred to Denver. In reality, he relocated to Denver of his own volition to cohabitate with his mistress, Ms. Melissa Hartley, who is present in the courtroom today. Daniel's face went white. Melissa's mouth fell open. The judge's eyebrows shot up. That's quite an allegation. Do you have proof? Yes, Your Honor. Priya laid out the phone records, highlighting the hundreds of calls and texts between Daniel and Melissa. She showed the credit card statements, the charges from Denver that clearly indicated he was living there, not staying in corporate housing. She even had printed social media posts from Melissa's Instagram, posts she'd supposedly deleted but that I'd screenshotted, showing her and Daniel together in Denver, captions like, "Home sweet home," and "Coffee with my love." The judge examined each piece of evidence carefully. When she looked up, her expression was ice cold. Mr. Morrison, did you lie to your wife about the nature of your time in Denver? Daniel's lawyer started to speak, but the judge cut him off. I asked Mr. Morrison directly. Daniel stood, his hands shaking. Your Honor, the situation is complicated. It's a yes or no question. I made a mistake, he said, his voice breaking. I fell in love with someone else, but I didn't want to hurt Catherine, So you lied to her, abandoned your marital home, and lived with your mistress while your wife believed you were working. Is that correct? I suppose when you put it that way. That's the only way to put it, Mr. Morrison. The judge looked at Melissa. Ms. Hartley, stand up. Melissa stood shakily. Were you aware that Mr. Morrison was married when you began your relationship with him? Melissa's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Your Honor. And you were aware that he was lying to his wife about living with you? He told me they were getting divorced. He said it was just a matter of time. That's not what I asked. Did you know he was lying to her? Melissa looked at the floor. Yes. The judge shook her head in disgust. Sit down. She turned back to Priya. Counselor, what is your client seeking? At this time, Your Honor, my client is seeking a dissolution of marriage on grounds of adultery and abandonment. She is not seeking alimony. However, she is seeking to retain the proceeds from the house sale as compensation for her husband's deception and the emotional distress he caused. She is also seeking full reimbursement for the $47,000 that Mr. Morrison spent on his mistress using marital funds. Daniel shot to his feet. That's insane. That's over $730,000 total. Mr. Morrison, sit down and be quiet, or I will hold you in contempt, the judge said sharply. She reviewed the documents again, her lips pressed into a thin line. Here is my ruling. Mrs. Morrison was legally entitled to sell the marital home as she was a co-owner on the deed. However, the proceeds of that sale are indeed marital assets and must be divided equitably. That said, given Mr. Morrison's egregious conduct, lying, adultery, abandonment, and dissipation of marital funds, I am awarding Mrs. Morrison 65% of the house sale proceeds. That comes to $446,550. Mr. Morrison will receive 35%, approximately $240,450. Daniel looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Additionally, Mr. Morrison will reimburse Mrs. Morrison the $47,000 he spent on his affair. He has 90 days to make that payment. If he fails to do so, we will garnish his wages. This court also finds that Mr. Morrison engaged in willful dissipation of marital assets and awards Mrs. Morrison her attorney's fees in full, estimated at $15,000. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. We're adjourned. I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high. Behind me, I could hear Daniel and Melissa arguing, their voices rising in pitch. You said this would be simple. Melissa shrieked. You said she'd just accept the divorce, and we'd get half of everything. Shut up, just shut up. Their voices faded as I pushed through the courthouse doors into the bright sunlight. Priya hugged me. You did it. You actually did it. We did it. I corrected. Thank you. What are you going to do now? I thought about my new loft, my bank account, my freedom. I'm going to live my best life. And that's exactly what I did. But the story doesn't end there, because karma wasn't finished with Daniel and Melissa yet. 3 weeks after the court ruling, I was at my new loft, working on a design project for a major tech client I'd landed, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered anyway. Catherine, this is Amanda Hartley, Melissa's sister. I sat up straight. How did you get this number? From the court documents. Look, I know you have no reason to trust me or want to talk to me, but I thought you should know what's happening. What's happening? Melissa and your ex-husband, they're imploding. He's broke, he can't make the payments the court ordered, and his company found out about the affair. Apparently, it violated their ethics policy, because Melissa was technically his subordinate. They fired him. No severance. He's looking at a lawsuit from the company for workplace misconduct. A savage satisfaction bloomed in my chest. And Melissa? She got fired too. Same policy. They're both unemployed, and Daniel keeps blaming her for everything. He's saying she seduced him, that it's her fault he lost his job and his house and his wife. Last night, she called me crying because he told her he wished he'd never met her. Why are you telling me this? Amanda was quiet for a moment. Because my sister is a homewrecker and I'm not blind to that. But I also watched her destroy her own life for a man who lied to everyone, including her. He told her you were abusive. He told her you were already separated. He painted himself as the victim, and she bought every lie. Now they're both miserable, broke, and unemployable in the pharma industry. I just thought you should know that justice exists, even outside courtrooms. Thank you, Amanda. I mean that. After I hung up, I stood on my balcony, watching the river flow past, reflecting the afternoon sun in golden ripples. Daniel had lost everything. His wife, his home, his job, his reputation, his mistress, and most of his money. And he'd done it all to himself. I could have felt pity, but I didn't. 2 months later, I saw them. I was at a Whole Foods in the Pearl District, picking up groceries, when I turned down the cereal aisle and nearly crashed my cart into Daniel. He looked even worse than at the courthouse. He'd lost weight, his clothes hung off his frame, and there was a defeated slump to his shoulders. Behind him, Melissa was examining generic store-brand crackers with a pinched, bitter expression. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. Catherine, he said finally. His voice was hoarse. Daniel! Melissa turned, saw me, and her face crumpled. She grabbed Daniel's arm and tried to steer him away, but he didn't move. You look good, he said. Happy. I was wearing a designer dress I bought with my own money, my hair freshly cut and highlighted, my nails manicured. I did look good. I felt good. I am happy. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. For everything. I was an idiot. I threw away the best thing in my life for nothing. Melissa made a small, wounded sound. You didn't throw it away for nothing, I said calmly. You threw it away for her. And now you have exactly what you wanted. I hope it was worth it. I pushed my cart past them, my head high, and didn't look back. At the checkout line, my hands were shaking, but not with rage or sadness. With relief. With closure. With the bone-deep knowledge that I dodged a bullet and come out the other side stronger. I never saw Daniel again after that. I heard through mutual friends that he and Melissa split up within 6 months. She moved back to her hometown in Idaho. He took a job in medical device sales for a fraction of his old salary and moved into a studio apartment in Beaverton. As for me, I thrived. With my newfound financial security, I hired a business coach and transformed my freelance design work into a full-fledged agency. I hired 2 junior designers, took on bigger clients, and within a year, my income had tripled. I bought a gorgeous condo in the Pearl District with a view of Mount Hood. I traveled Paris, Tokyo, Barcelona, all the places Daniel had always said we'd go someday. I went on dates, lots of them. Some were terrible, some were fun, and a few were genuinely great. I didn't rush into anything. I was learning to trust again, slowly, carefully, with my eyes wide open. I started taking pottery classes on Tuesday nights. I joined a book club. I adopted a rescue dog, a golden retriever mix named Luna, who slept on my bed and followed me everywhere. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage. I laughed more than I had in years. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, Priya invited me to lunch. We sat at a trendy restaurant downtown, and she raised her glass. To you, she said, for being brave enough to blow up your life and build a better one from the ashes. I clinked my glass against hers. To fresh starts. You know, Priya said, I've handled hundreds of divorces, but yours is the one I'll always remember. You didn't just leave him. You strategically dismantled his entire world and walked away with your dignity intact. He dismantled his own world, I corrected. I just made sure I didn't go down with the ship. Fair enough. So tell me, if you could go back and do anything differently, would you? I thought about it. Would I have confronted Daniel earlier? Tried to salvage the marriage? Ignored my suspicions? No, I said finally. Everything happened exactly as it needed to. If I'd confronted him right away, he would have talked his way out of it. He would have promised to change, to end things with Melissa, to go to counseling. And I would have believed him because I wanted to believe him. The lies would have just gotten more elaborate. This way, I gathered proof, protected myself, and got out clean. No regrets. I looked out the window at the city I'd fallen in love with all over again. Not a single one. But wait, there's more to this tale. 6 months after that encounter at Whole Foods, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line, you were right. I almost deleted it as spam, but curiosity got the better of me. Catherine, you don't know me, but I know everything about you. My name is Richard Hartley, Melissa's ex-husband. Yes, ex. We were married for 3 years before she left me for your husband. Actually, before she met Daniel, she cheated on me with her boss at her previous company. I was too blind to see the pattern. I'm writing because I found your court documents through public records when I was researching my own divorce from Melissa. I wanted you to know that you're not alone in being destroyed by her and that Daniel got exactly what he deserved. After they both lost their jobs, Daniel convinced Melissa they should start a pharmaceutical consulting business together. She drained her savings, about $30,000, into it. He drained what was left of his. The business failed within 4 months. They couldn't get clients because word had spread in the industry about why they'd been fired. Last I heard, Melissa was working as a receptionist at a dentist's office for $16 an hour. Daniel is delivering for DoorDash. They blame each other for everything. She's told anyone who will listen that he ruined her life. He's told anyone who will listen that she seduced him away from his stable marriage. The truth is, they deserve each other. 2 liars who lied to everyone, including themselves. I just thought you should know that karma is real, and sometimes it takes its time but gets there eventually. Best wishes, Richard. P.S. Your revenge was legendary. The court documents are public record, and let's just say the pharmaceutical sales world is small. Everyone knows what you did. You're a cautionary tale they tell new hires about what happens when you cheat on a spouse who's smarter than you. I read the email 3 times, then forwarded it to Priya with the subject line, closure. She called me immediately, laughing so hard she could barely speak. Oh my God, Catherine, you're a legend. You're the urban legend they tell at pharma sales conferences. I just did what I had to do to protect myself. No, Priya said. You did what most people are too afraid to do. You didn't just accept being a victim. You became the villain of a story and the hero of yours. That takes guts most people don't have. That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, Luna's head resting on my feet, and thought about everything that had led me here. The lies, the heartbreak, the rage, the planning, the victory, the aftermath. I'd spent 15 years building a life with someone who'd thrown it away for a pretty face and empty promises. I'd spent 6 weeks believing a lie, and I'd spent 18 days orchestrating the most satisfying revenge I could imagine. Was I proud of myself? Absolutely. Did I regret any of it? Not even a little. Because here's the truth about betrayal. It changes you. It can make you bitter and small, or it can make you strong and unshakable. I chose strength. I chose self-protection. I chose to value myself more than I valued a marriage that had become a lie. And in doing so, I didn't just survive. I thrived. Daniel and Melissa destroyed their own lives. I just made sure I wasn't collateral damage in their explosion. Some people say revenge is wrong, that you should take the high road, that living well is the best revenge. And maybe they're right. But I'd argue that sometimes, living well is the revenge. Sometimes, The best way to heal from betrayal is to systematically remove yourself from the situation, protect your assets, and watch your betrayers face the natural consequences of their choices. Did I actively destroy Daniel and Melissa? No. Did I strategically position myself to come out on top while they imploded? Absolutely. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. 3 years have passed now, since that Thursday when Daniel told me he was being transferred to Denver. 3 years since I believe his lies. 3 years since I discovered the truth and decided I was worth more than being someone's placeholder while they auditioned my replacement. My design agency is thriving. I have 6 employees now, and we just signed our biggest client yet, a Fortune 500 company that's paying us $400,000 for a full brand redesign. I bought a second property, a weekend cabin in the Columbia River Gorge, where I go to hike and think and breathe. I'm dating someone new, an architect named Marcus who I met at a gallery opening. It's slow, careful, built on honesty and respect. He knows my story. He knows what I did, and he says it's one of the things he admires most about me, that I refuse to be a victim. Luna is spoiled rotten and has her own Instagram account with 50,000 followers. Turns out people really love golden retrievers in scenic Pacific Northwest locations. I have dinner with Priya once a month. We laugh about the case that started our friendship. She tells me she uses my story, with permission, when she teaches CLEs about asset protection in divorce. I'm her star example of strategic thinking under pressure. My life is full, rich, meaningful. Everything I thought I had with Daniel, but better, because this time it's built on truth instead of lies. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if Daniel ever thinks about what he lost. I wonder if he lies awake in his studio apartment, delivering orders for $7 plus tips, and thinks about the house we owned, the life we shared, the woman who loved him enough to pack his suitcase, and wish him well even as he was leaving to move in with his mistress. I wonder if Melissa, typing up dental appointment reminders for $16 an hour, ever thinks about the 6-figure pharma job she threw away. I wonder if she remembers bragging to her friends about the successful boyfriend who was leaving his wife for her, only to discover that successful men who cheat on their wives rarely stay successful for long. Mostly, though, I don't think about them at all. Because here's what I learned. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. And I am gloriously, completely, utterly indifferent to Daniel Morrison and Melissa Hartley. They exist somewhere in the world, living with the consequences of their choices. And I exist here, in my beautiful condo with my thriving business and my loyal dog and my honest boyfriend and my clear conscience. I exist here as proof that you can blow up your life and build a better one. I exist here as a cautionary tale to anyone who thinks they can lie and cheat and face no consequences. I exist here as a reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply refusing to let someone else's betrayal define your worth. It's taking back your power, your money, your dignity, and your future. It's selling the house, taking the cash, and walking away with your head held high while they scramble to explain to everyone why their life fell apart. My name is Catherine Morrison. Well, Catherine Hayes now. I took back my maiden name, and I'm the woman who sold her house out from under her cheating husband and never looked back. And I tell any woman in my situation to do exactly the same thing. Protect yourself first. Love yourself most. And never, ever let someone convince you that their betrayal is something you have to accept with grace and silence. Burn it down if you have to. Just make sure you're not standing in the ashes when you do. Because the best view comes from the top, and betrayers belong at the bottom. And that, my friends, is exactly where I left them. But life has a way of bringing things full circle, and the universe wasn't quite done teaching Daniel and Melissa their lessons yet. It was a crisp October afternoon, 4 years after the divorce, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I was at my office, reviewing portfolio designs with my team, when my assistant buzzed me. "Catherine, there's someone online too. She says it's urgent and personal. Her name is Jennifer Morrison." My blood ran cold. Jennifer Morrison was Daniel's mother. I hadn't spoken to her since before the divorce. She called me once, screaming about how I'd ruined her son's life, and I'd hung up and blocked her number. What could she possibly want now? I almost declined the call. Then curiosity got the better of me. "This is Catherine. Catherine." Her voice was thick, like she'd been crying. "I know I have no right to call you. I know what I said to you before was unforgivable, but I need you to know something. I need you to hear it from me. Mrs. Morrison, I really don't think. Daniel is in the hospital. The words came out in a rush. He had a heart attack. He's going to survive, but the doctors say it was caused by severe stress, high blood pressure, and, her voice broke, and substance abuse. My son has been using cocaine to stay awake for his delivery shifts. He's been working 80 hours a week just to make rent and pay off his debts. Catherine, he's destroyed. Completely destroyed. I sat down heavily in my chair. I should have felt satisfaction. Vindication. Instead, I just felt tired. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserved better. Jennifer's voice was barely a whisper. I've had 4 years to think about what happened. 4 years to watch my son spiral. And I need you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then. He lied to all of us. He manipulated everyone. And you were the only one smart enough to protect yourself before he dragged you down with him. Mrs. Morrison, please, let me finish. That woman, Melissa, she left him about a year ago. Took the last $5,000 he had saved and disappeared. Cleaned out their joint account and moved to Arizona with some guy she met online. Daniel tried to file charges, but the police said it was a civil matter. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. I closed my eyes. Melissa had done to Daniel exactly what he'd helped her do to me. Poetic justice. He asks about you sometimes, Jennifer continued. In his more lucid moments, he asks if you're happy, if you're doing well. I tell him the truth, that I see your design agency's work all over the city, that you're thriving. And every time, he just closes his eyes and cries. He knows what he lost. He knows there's no going back. Mrs. Morrison, I appreciate you calling, but I don't know what you want me to say. I don't want you to say anything. I don't want you to forgive him, or visit him, or give him closure. He doesn't deserve any of those things. I just needed you to know that a mother can love her son and still recognize that he's a terrible person who destroyed a good woman's life. You were a wonderful daughter-in-law. You deserved so much better than my son gave you. That's all. That's everything. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone in my hand. Part of me felt vindicated. Daniel had hit rock bottom, and it was entirely his own doing. But another part of me, a smaller part, felt something like sadness. Not for him, but for the 15 years I'd invested in a man who'd turned out to be a stranger. That evening, I told Marcus about the call over dinner. He listened quietly, his hand covering mine on the table. How do you feel? He asked when I finished. Honestly, nothing. I feel nothing for him. It's like hearing about a stranger's misfortune. I recognize that it's sad, but it doesn't touch me. Is that cold? That's healing, Marcus said gently. 4 years ago, a call like that would have devastated you or given you satisfaction. Now it's just information. That's how you know you've moved on. He was right. I'd moved on so completely that Daniel's suffering didn't even register as a win anymore. It was just a fact, like the weather or traffic. It existed, but it had nothing to do with me. 2 weeks later, I was giving a keynote speech at a women's entrepreneurship conference in Portland. The conference organizers had asked me to talk about building my agency, but I decided to include my story, the divorce, the house sale, the strategic planning that had saved my financial future. The ballroom was packed with over 500 women. As I spoke, I watched their faces transform. Some were shocked. Some were inspired. Many were nodding, tears streaming down their faces, recognizing their own stories and mine. I'm not telling you to blow up your marriage at the first sign of trouble, I said, gripping the podium. I'm telling you to pay attention to the signs. I'm telling you to protect yourself. I'm telling you that love should never cost you your dignity, your financial security, or your peace of mind. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone lies to you, document it. When someone tries to gaslight you into thinking you're paranoid or crazy or jealous, trust your gut. Because your gut is usually right. I spent 18 days selling my house and securing my future while my husband thought I was just reorganizing the garage. Those 18 days saved my life. They gave me the resources to hire a good lawyer, to start my business, to build the life I have now. If I'd confronted him immediately, if I'd let my emotions override my strategy, I would have walked away from that marriage with nothing but heartbreak and debt. So here's my advice. Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Keep your own bank account. Keep your own credit card. Keep copies of every important document. Know what you own, what you owe, and what you're entitled to. Because if the worst happens, you'll need those things. And if the worst doesn't happen, you'll have peace of mind. The applause was deafening. After my speech, I was mobbed by women wanting to share their own stories, to ask for advice, to tell me I'd given them the courage to leave, or to stay, or to demand better. One woman, probably in her late 50s, grabbed my hand with tears in her eyes. My husband has been having an affair for 6 months. I knew, but I didn't want to believe it. After hearing you, I'm going home, gathering evidence and protecting myself. Thank you for giving me permission to be smart instead of just heartbroken. Another woman, younger, maybe early 30s, said, I've been ignoring red flags with my boyfriend. He won't let me see his phone. He's secretive about money. He gets angry when I ask questions. I was going to marry him next year. I'm not anymore. You just saved me from becoming you 4 years ago. As I drove home that night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The conference had recorded my speech and posted it on social media. It was going viral. Within 3 days, it had over 2 million views. Within a week, I was being invited to speak at conferences across the country. My story had struck a nerve. Women everywhere were tired of being told to be gracious in betrayal, to take the high road, to forgive and forget. They wanted to hear from someone who'd fought back strategically and won. They wanted permission to prioritize themselves. I started getting emails. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. Women thanking me, sharing their own stories, asking for specific advice about their situations. One email in particular caught my attention. Dear Catherine, my name is Stacy Brennan. I'm a literary agent in New York. I watched your speech at the Women's Entrepreneurship Conference, and I think you need to write a book. Your story is powerful, but more than that, your strategic approach to protecting yourself during divorce is information that every woman needs. Would you be interested in discussing a book deal? Best, Stacy. A book. I'd never considered it, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I could reach so many more women. I could provide the roadmap I'd wished I'd had 4 years ago. 3 months later, I signed a 6-figure book deal with a major publisher. The book, titled Selling the House, A Strategic Guide to Protecting Yourself in Divorce, became my obsession. I worked on it every night after my agency work was done, pouring everything I'd learned into its pages. It wasn't just my story. I interviewed divorce attorneys, financial advisors, therapists, and dozens of women who'd been through similar situations. I created worksheets, checklists, state-by-state guides to marital property law. I made it practical and actionable. The book came out 18 months after I signed the deal, and it debuted at number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list. Within a month, it hit number 1. Suddenly, I wasn't just a successful entrepreneur. I was an author, a speaker, an advocate for women's financial empowerment in divorce. I was invited on talk shows, podcasts, news programs. My face was on magazine covers. My story was being told and retold, and Daniel had to watch all of it. I know this because his sister, Emma, reached out to me through my publisher. We'd always gotten along before the divorce, and she'd been one of the few members of his family who'd quietly supported me. Catherine, I wanted you to know that Daniel saw you on Good Morning America yesterday. Mom was watching it at the hospital during his physical therapy session. He's recovering from the heart attack, but it's slow. When your interview started, he asked the nurse to change the channel, but Mom refused. She made him watch the whole thing. Watching him watch you was surreal. You looked so polished, so successful, so happy. And he looked like a ghost. When the host asked if you had any regrets, and you said, not a single one, I watched whatever was left of his delusion that you might still care about him just die. After the segment ended, he asked Mom to leave. She told me later that when she came back an hour later, he'd been crying. Not the dramatic, attention-seeking crying he used to do. Just quiet, defeated tears. Emma told me he'd tried to buy my book but couldn't afford it. He'd gone to the library to check it out, but there was a 6-month waiting list. He'd finally read it when Emma bought a copy and left it at his apartment by accident. He'd called her afterward. Every word in this book is about what an idiot I was, he'd said. Every piece of advice is what she had to learn, because I'm a terrible person. I'm the villain in a best-selling book. Millions of people know my name and what I did. Good, Emma had told him. Maybe you'll think twice before lying to the next person you date. Apparently, there was no next person. Daniel was alone, broke and broken. His credit was ruined, his career was over, his health was compromised, and his reputation was destroyed beyond repair. And me, I was on top of the world. The book led to a speaking tour. 50 cities, sold-out venues, women lining up for hours to get their books signed and to tell me their stories. I met women who'd left abusive marriages because of my book. Women who'd protected their assets before filing for divorce. Women who'd found the courage to demand better. One woman told me she'd been married for 30 years to a man who controlled every penny. She'd never had her own bank account, her own credit card, her own anything. After reading my book, she'd secretly opened a bank account, started freelancing online, and squirreled away money for 2 years. When she finally filed for divorce, she had $80,000 saved in a plan. Her husband, who'd assumed she was helpless, was blindsided. "You saved my life," she told me, tears streaming down her face. "I would have stayed and died in that marriage if I hadn't read your story." Another woman approached me with her teenage daughter. "I bought your book for her," the mother said. "I want her to know, before she ever gets married, how to protect herself. I want her to know that love shouldn't require self-sacrifice. Thank you for giving me the words to teach her what I learned too late." These moments made everything worth it. Every painful memory I dredged up to write the book. Every interview where I had to relive my humiliation. Every article that called me cold, or calculating, or unforgiving. I didn't care what critics said. The women who needed my message heard it loud and clear. Marcus proposed to me at the end of the book tour. We were in Charleston, my last stop, standing on the Battery watching the sunset. He got down on one knee with a ring he designed himself, a stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds. "Catherine Hayes, you're the strongest, smartest, most remarkable woman I've ever met. You've built an empire from ashes, and I want to spend the rest of my life supporting you the way you deserve to be supported. Will you marry me?" I said yes without hesitation. This time, I was going into marriage with my eyes wide open. This time, I had a prenup drafted by the best attorney in Portland. This time, I kept my own accounts, my own assets, my own independence. Not because I didn't trust Marcus, but because I'd learned that trust shouldn't require vulnerability to the point of stupidity. We got married in a small, intimate ceremony at the Columbia River Gorge, surrounded by 50 of our closest friends and family. Priya was my maid of honor. Luna was the ring bearer, wearing a flower crown and looking absolutely ridiculous and perfect. It was nothing like my first wedding, which had been a big, traditional affair with 200 guests and all the trappings. This wedding was authentic, joyful, and entirely on my terms. Daniel wasn't invited, obviously, but I heard from Emma that he knew about it. She posted a photo on social media and he'd seen it. He'd sent her a text that just said, "She looks happy." "What did you say?" I asked Emma, who'd become one of my closest friends. I said, "She's happy. She married a man who treats her the way you should have. Maybe learn from that." Did he respond? No, but he deleted his social media accounts the next day. I think seeing what he could have had was finally too much. Good, I thought. Let him grieve. Let him understand the magnitude of what he'd thrown away. My second book, Rebuilding After Betrayal, a financial and emotional guide, came out 2 years after the first. It did even better, debuting at #1 and staying there for 12 weeks. I'd expanded my focus beyond divorce to include financial recovery after any kind of betrayal, business partnerships, family inheritance disputes, fraud. My agency had grown to 15 employees. We'd opened a second office in Seattle. I'd personally trained every designer, teaching them not just design principles but also business strategy, contract negotiation, and financial literacy. I wanted every woman who worked for me to be equipped to protect herself, no matter what life threw at her. I started a foundation with a portion of my book proceeds, offering legal aid grants to women who couldn't afford divorce attorneys. In the first year, we helped 200 women. In the second year, 500. By year 5, we'd helped over 2,000 women leave bad situations with their finances protected. One of those women sent me a letter that I kept framed in my office. Dear Ms. Hayes, you don't know me, but your foundation paid for my divorce attorney. Without that help, I would still be trapped in a marriage where my husband stole my inheritance, controlled my movements, and told me I was worthless. Because of you, I'm free. I have custody of my kids. I have my money back. I have my life back. I tell everyone that Catherine Hayes is the reason I'm alive. Thank you doesn't cover it, but thank you anyway. Forever grateful, Jenna M. These letters kept me going on hard days. They reminded me why I turned my private pain into public advocacy. 5 years after the divorce, almost to the day, I was in my office when my assistant buzzed me again. Catherine, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. His name is Daniel Morrison. My heart stopped. Tell him I'm not available. I did. He says he'll wait as long as it takes. He's been sitting in the lobby for 2 hours. I looked at Marcus, who'd stopped by to take me to lunch. We've been married for 2 years, and he knew every detail of my history. Want me to get rid of him? Marcus asked, his jaw tight. No. I'll handle it. But come with me. We walked to the lobby together. Daniel was sitting in the corner, looking small and defeated in a chair that seemed to swallow him. He'd aged terribly. His hair was mostly gray, his face lined and haggard. He wore a cheap suit that didn't fit well and held a worn paperback copy of my book. When he saw me, he stood awkwardly. His eyes went to Marcus, then back to me. Catherine, thank you for seeing me. I didn't agree to see you, Daniel. You're ambushing me at my place of business. What do you want? He held up the book. I read this. I've read it 5 times actually, and I need to tell you that you were right about everything. Every analysis, every piece of advice, every warning you give women about men like me. You were right, and I was wrong, and I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. If you came here for forgiveness, I didn't. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I came because I'm in a program. A 12-step program for addiction and behavioral issues. Step 9 is making amends to people you've harmed. My sponsor said I needed to do this in person, even if you slammed the door in my face. Marcus moved closer to me, a protective presence. Daniel continued, his voice shaking. I'm not asking you to forgive me or forget what I did. I just need to say out loud that I take full responsibility for everything. For lying to you. For cheating on you. For making you question your sanity. For stealing from you. For every moment of pain I caused. It was all my fault. You did nothing wrong. You were a perfect wife, and I was a terrible husband. Is that all? My voice was ice. No. I also want you to know that I'm proud of you. Seeing what you've built, what you've accomplished, how you've turned your pain into purpose, it's incredible. You're incredible. I'm sorry I was too stupid and selfish to see it when I had you. Are you done? Almost. The last thing is that I'm moving to Montana. My cousin has a construction company there, and he's giving me a job. I'm leaving Portland because seeing evidence of your success everywhere, billboards with your face, your agency's work on every building, your books in every store window, it's a constant reminder of what I lost. I need a fresh start away from all of this. Good, I said flatly. Montana sounds perfect for you. Is that everything? Daniel looked at me with such desperate sadness that I almost felt something. Almost. That's everything. Thank you for listening. And Catherine, I really do hope you're happy. You deserve to be. He turned and walked out of my office. I watched through the window as he got into a beat-up Honda Civic and drove away. The man who'd once driven an Audi, who'd worn Tom Ford suits, who thought he was too good for his stable, loving wife. Marcus put his arm around me. You okay? I'm perfect, I said. And I meant it. That night, at home with Marcus and Luna, I thought about the woman I'd been 5 years ago. The woman who'd packed Daniel's suitcase with tears in her eyes, who'd believed his lies, who'd thought her world was ending when her marriage did. I thought about the moment I'd found out the truth, the moment I decided to fight back, the moment I'd walked into that courthouse with my head high and my evidence organized. I thought about the judge's gavel coming down, awarding me justice. I thought about the book signings, the women's faces, the letters of gratitude. I thought about my wedding to Marcus, standing on a cliff overlooking the Columbia River, promising forever to someone who actually deserved the promise. I thought about my company, my foundation, my impact on the world. And I realized that Daniel leaving had been the best thing that ever happened to me. His betrayal had destroyed my marriage, but liberated my potential. His lies had broken my heart, but opened my eyes. His selfishness had ended one chapter of my life and started a better one. If I could go back and tell that heartbroken woman in the empty house anything, I'd tell her this: it gets better. It gets so much better. The pain you're feeling right now is temporary, but the strength you're about to discover is permanent. You're going to survive this, and then you're going to thrive in ways you can't imagine. You're going to sell the house and feel powerful instead of petty. You're going to walk into that courtroom and win. You're going to build an empire from the ashes of your marriage. You're going to write books that change lives. You're going to marry a man who cherishes you the way you always deserve to be cherished. You're going to be happy. Genuinely, deeply, completely happy. And the man who betrayed you is going to spend the rest of his life knowing he lost the best thing he ever had, and that there's no getting it back. That's not revenge. That's just reality. Because karma isn't about actively hurting people who hurt you. Karma is about building such an amazing life that your betrayers have to watch from the sidelines, knowing they could have been part of it if only they'd been better people. Daniel is in Montana now, starting over at rock bottom at 45 years old. Melissa is in Arizona, probably running the same con on some new victim. Jennifer occasionally sends me Christmas cards, apologizing again for her son. Emma and I have lunch once a month, and we never mention her brother. And me. I'm here in my gorgeous home with my loving husband and my ridiculous dog and my thriving business and my best-selling books and my foundation that's changing lives. I'm here as proof that you can lose everything and build something better. I'm here as a reminder that the best revenge really is living well, but living well can include strategically dismantling your betrayer's plans while protecting yourself. I'm here to tell every woman reading this or hearing this, you are stronger than you think. You are smarter than your betrayer believes. And you deserve better than being lied to, cheated on, gaslit, or manipulated. So if you find yourself where I was 5 years ago, suspicious, heartbroken, scared, do what I did. Gather your evidence. Protect your assets. Hire a good lawyer. And then burn that bridge so thoroughly that there's no going back. Because sometimes the only way to build a new life is to completely destroy the old one. And trust me when I tell you, the new life is worth it. My name is Catherine Hayes, and I sold my house out from under my cheating husband while he lived with his mistress, thinking I was stupid enough to wait for him. I'm a best-selling author, a successful entrepreneur, a happily married woman, and the founder of a legal aid foundation that's helped thousands of women. And I'm living proof that you can turn betrayal into victory if you're smart enough, strong enough, and angry enough to refuse to be a victim. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it inspires you, empowers you, or at the very least, entertains you. If you're going through something similar, know that you're not alone. And if you need help, reach out. Resources exist. Good lawyers exist. Women who've been through this and made it to the other side exist. You can survive this. You can thrive after this. I did, and you can too. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a foundation gala to plan, a third book to write, and a husband who's making dinner for us tonight because that's what partners in healthy relationships do. They share the load equally. The woman I was 5 years ago would barely recognize the woman I am now. And that's exactly how it should be. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story.